So I'm working with a guy who's a high-level executive. He is at the very, very peak of society, up there, nine-figure business. He's working in there in the board of directors, all this type of stuff. So he's doing absolutely fantastic for himself. And he's having this very interesting problem. And again, this is a sort of communication leadership skill. So he is a man who was very humble in his beginning. So he started out his life and he sat down and he said, I want to be successful. All right. So that's what we all do, isn't it? So what do you do when you want to be successful as a young man? Well, I guess you fucking millennials and social media won't know this, but you shut the fuck up. You be quiet. You sit down and you don't talk. You don't say stuff. You just sit down and you say to yourself, all right, I don't know what's going on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be a good listener. So he became an observant listener, someone who sat down and said to himself, well, what's happening around here? And he listened and he listened and he listened. And what actually began to happen is that he began to become successful, but over time, he began to get elected into leadership roles because he gathered all this knowledge and he became incredibly competent and did the things that he was told to do, and he just kept on going up and up and up. And now he's in a position where he's a leader, but he's a bit too introverted. So he now finds himself not talking enough, not being assertive enough, not being positioning and pointing out how he should articulate himself enough. He'll get into these meetings with people and people will find him a very good listener, a very observant leader, but they'll treat him more like a friend, or they might even treat him a slightly lower status than he actually is. This is a dude who was, he's doing pretty fucking well, and he's there running this company for, he owns the company, and he's talking to the CEO of the company, who's basically the only man who's above the CEO is this guy, and the CEO talks maybe down to him a little bit, or talks maybe too casual, or rambles and wastes his time and stuff like this. And of course, this is a representation of that internal truth where you teach people how to treat you. Because these people act this way towards him because that's how he sort of acts. He sits there and he's very, very introspective. He's very calm and he listens an awful lot. And so me and him have been sitting down and we've been talking to him. We're like, all right, bro, but we have to change this. You have to conceptualize this in your mind as that you went through that archetypal experience of being a young man and you wanted to overcome yourself. So you shut up and you listened. But now you've flourished into this different archetype. And now you're in this position where you have to become articulate. You have to learn to speak. You have to learn to command. Because what's interesting is that even though you're this high position person, if you don't start properly fulfilling that role, you'll be treated lower than you are. And your job will be harder to do. People will actually be more chaotic. People won't get stuff done as much. And it will just generally make things more difficult for you. You should definitely sit down and say to yourself, you've got to work in this ability to do this. And so this is about taking this difference in attitude, understanding sort of the arc of your story, and then going and switching around and saying to yourself, how do I actually begin to draw boundaries and articulate myself? How does one begin to act more like a leader? What does that mean? And the actual essence of being a leader is very simple. It's the same principle as being masculine. So when it comes to being a leader, it's about drawing boundaries is what I should say. Okay. Now, an awful lot of our interactions these days, just kicked the camera. An awful lot of our interactions these days happen in conversation. So it's about understanding conversational boundaries and decision-based boundaries and being very, very blunt and clear with people about what you expect of them and how things work. And this is what it is, taking the lead. Because if you sit down, this is something that you'll do an awful lot if you're quite an introspective person. I'm actually like this as well, but I've just learned to talk a lot. Is you'll sit down and you'll be like, hey, how are you? And the person will just open up and start to ramble. And you can model this in your head as like a feminine behavior, right? So they'll start to ramble and they'll start to blather on aimlessly, and they'll maybe talk about the business or the problems, but it'll be aimless. It'll be blah, 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 blah. And you need to turn around and you need to start to see yourself as maybe the kind of quiet but assertive masculine authority. And so you create boundaries to the conversation. Think about that. And you defend those boundaries as like territory, You sort of say, no, this is what we're talking about. Now you can talk about what you want to talk about, but it has to be focused on this. And you control the flow of the conversation. And you put your foot down. So for example, when you come into the conversation, you don't start with something like open-ended, hey, how are you? You're sort of like, hey, so this is what we're doing here. This is our plan here. You put the foot down, you set down a boundary. This is what I want to hear from you. How's this going? And then you lead the conversation with questions. This is quite interesting, is because you don't have to become this super fake talkative guy, maybe like me, you don't have to try to be super extroverted when you're not. Instead, you could still be that sort of introverted, quiet person, but you can completely control the conversation through sitting down and saying to yourself, all right, step by step, how do I do this? So you start asserting these firm boundaries. All right, ask questions. Sit down, statement. And this is what we're going to do today. First of all, question. And through the questions, you control the boundaries of the conversation. You retain control. And then if someone tries to deviate off, again, you just go hard to statement and pull them back and then ask another question. And that means they feel like they can talk. You're not just shouting down at them or something like that, being some type of, I don't know, screaming at them like a leader of some sort, of like the general in Full Metal Jacket. But instead, you're sitting down, you're being normal, you're being what you usually are, but instead you're just controlling the flow of the conversation a little bit more. You're trying to pull out of them information still, but you're being more intelligent about how you do this. Now, this is a subtle art that really makes a difference at the highest level. This could be the difference between, hours wasted. This guy was saying to me that once he implemented this, he had meetings that usually went on an hour that were cut down to 15 fucking minutes, Like, this is the difference this can make. You have any idea how much time, money, effort, mental resources are saved when you can cut things down to that level of efficiency? 45 minutes spared consistently throughout the day is a lot of time, and this is the type of stuff that you want to be able to do. So this is the value that is inherent in these type of skills. Again, if you're into psychology, into this type of stuff, you are sitting on a gold mine. And of course, if you're in a position where you want to become a better leader, you want to work in these type of skills, and you want me to train you and show you how to do this stuff, or you want to come into any one of my programs that can train you and make your brain operate at its highest level, go down below. There'll be an opportunity to book, a link in the description. There'll be a place where you can apply, and then I'll have me or a member of my team reach out to you, sit down and chat with you, talk about what's going on. So just basically go in there, tell us a little bit about yourself so we have some orientation, and we'll go forward from there. Thank you very much. Stay juicy. Bye-bye.